in this war, Ukraine has mostly relied on the West. I mean, getting all this support and financial and military support. How effective has that been?
So I mean, it's critical in several respects. One, the Ukrainian stockpiles of weapons was just inherently limited, and so they needed to have the ammunition replaced. They needed to have spare parts. They needed to have other types of assistance. And there's certainly, I think, we don't know the full details, but I think the West has been helping them with some intelligence sharing, understanding where the Russians are, where they're going, who's being killed, what to target. And the sanctions will have impact in the long run. And diplomatically, you've seen an unexpected show of solidarity. It was more than I thought. As you recall, you mentioned my initial piece, and one of the scenarios was NATO would split over how to respond to a limited Russian incursion. But since they've gone for this massive one, this hasn't been much of an issue. There's strong NATO, EU, Western support. That said, it hasn't included some of the things that the Ukrainian forces would have liked, the no-fly zone. President Biden very early took off the table the possibility of U.S. forces intervening in the conflict, and that may have made it easier for the Russians in the sense that they felt more comfortable taking these very aggressive war aims, engaging a lot of war crimes and so on. But it was realistic. I mean, I think that it would have, I don't think the U.S. or any NATO country was going to send their forces into Ukraine as long as the fighting stayed in Ukraine.
I mean, we'll get back to the no-fly zone and the possibility of the United States or other countries getting involved in this conflict. But so far, I would like to ask you, I mean, Ukraine has been receiving a lot of different types of weapons, but still it obviously needs a lot more, including counteroffensive operations. How likely is it that Zelensky will get those from Western allies?
So you are correct so far that the West has given the Ukrainian armed forces important weapons for defense. Particularly, we talked about the thousands of missiles and armor and intelligence, and the Ukrainians certainly are capable of launching limited counteroffensives. We've seen this occur in the north and in the south, but for the big counteroffensive, which we would like to see, reconquering the Donbass, if not Crimea, the Ukrainians will need a lot more. They're going to need a lot more air power. They're going to need a lot better integration, command, intelligence, surveillance. So they'll need either many more warplanes or 10 or thousands of drones. They're going to need a lot more armor. And that hasn't come, and therefore they haven't been able to engage in the kind of counteroffensive they might like. It may come, it may take a while. You probably, since there's only a limited stockpile of these Soviet era arms lying around in NATO countries, they're going to need to buy more from other places, or they'll need to train the Ukrainians how to use some of the Western weapons, and that will take months. I mean, they have to learn how to use a new system effectively, how to integrate with their other systems. So that may become more important towards the end of the year or next year, if and I hope it doesn't, this war continues that long.